Welcome to Take 5 for Torah. Today is September 2nd, Tes Elul. This entire week is dedicated in the memory of my father's family, the Schwartz family, who were killed in the ghetto of Lutsk when they was liquidated on the 8th of Elul in 1942. Today is Tuesday. That means that we are discussing Sefer Shmuel. We are up to chapter 18, which begins with an abiding love between David and Yonatan. This is the paradigm in Pirkei Avot for Ahava she'eina tluya b'davar, love that is not contingent upon anything. In fact, the love that they had for each other, certainly in the case of Yonatan, came at his own expense. Yonatan knew, he'll say this a little later in the book, but he knew at some point that David would be the next king and he wouldn't be, and still he loved David. His father Shaul, now that was a different story. You see, right after David killed Goliath, David became incredibly popular. Remember, the people knew that the king would come from Shevet Yehuda, and Binyamin had the first king, Shaul, and of course he's going to want his son to rule after him. And when David returned from killing the giant and saving all of Klal Yisrael from the Philistines, some dancing girls came out and sang a song that said, Shika Shaul ba'alafav, Shaul kills in the thousands, v'David b'rivavosav, and David in the 10,000s. Shaul was incensed by this, and he said, next they'll give him the kingship, as if though dancing girls can decide who's going to be the next king. In fact, the Malbim says that what they really meant to say was Hika Shaul be'alafav. Doesn't mean Shaul killed in his thousands. That would be Hika Shaul alafav. What it means is that what Shaul can do with 1,000 soldiers is what David does with 10,000 soldiers. They may have meant to praise Shaul 10 times as much. All right, it is true that later in the book others interpret this statement as David being a great warrior, much more the warrior than Shaul. But for now, there is a very interesting phenomenon that occurs that you would only get from a concordance, is that the name Shaul appears many, many times in Sefer Shmuel and Sefer Divrei Hayamim. And we know he was a king. But the words Melech and Shaul never meet in Tanakh, except in this pasuk. He's never called Shaul HaMelech, and he's never called HaMelech Shaul, as opposed to David, who's very often called David HaMelech, HaMelech David. In this particular instance, it says that the dancing girls came out to praise David before HaMelech Shaul. Perhaps the pasuk is putting these two words together to tell us they meant no harm. Of course they didn't. Now, it could be that you can say it's wrong to praise anyone that way in front of the king. We can admit that. But the pasuk, by putting Shaul, HaMelech Shaul in this way, where it doesn't appear anywhere else, may be a sign that of course, he was inventing all of the problems. And he started to express to his son that you'd better help me get rid of this man because he's a threat not only to my throne, but especially to your throne. You can never be king as long as he's around. And this will be the first of 12 times in the rest of Sefer Shmuel that Shaul tries to kill David. The first time cynically by sending him to kill 100 Plishtim in order to marry his second daughter. Now, he was supposed to marry the first daughter as a reward for killing Goliath. Shaul went back on that, and he gave the first daughter to a different man. And he said, okay, I have a second daughter. If you kill 100 Plishtim, I'll let you marry her. And it says in the Tanakh, it says what he was thinking. He was hoping that David would die while pursuing that goal, and that he would be rid of him altogether, using cynically his daughter's love. Michal is the only woman in all of Tanakh where it says she loved a particular man. So Michal is in love with David. Shaul's son Yonatan is very much the best friend of David. And Shaul is alone here looking as his family members are very enamored of this man that he wants to kill. David does better. He kills 200 Plishtim. So Shaul is stuck, and he gives over his daughter Michal to David, and we'll see more about that in the next chapters, some other times where Shaul tries to kill David.